Chevrolet built exactly 5 Corvettes that were never supposed to exist. The Grand Sport was so fast, so purpose-built for racing, that GM's own corporate policy killed it before it could compete. Only 5 were completed, and every single one became a legend. This is the story of how Chevrolet's racing director defied his own company, built these cars in secret, and created what many consider the greatest racing Corvette ever made. In 1962, Carroll Shelby had just embarrassed every American automaker at Le Mans. His Cobra, powered by a Ford engine wrapped in a British chassis, proved that lightweight and horsepower could beat anything Detroit offered. Chevrolet's racing director, Zora Arkus-Duntov, took it personally. Duntov had been pushing GM to go racing for years. He watched Shelby's Cobras dominate tracks across America and Europe, and he knew the production Corvette, despite its power, was too heavy and too compromised by street car requirements to compete. He wanted something pure, something purpose-built. So he designed the Grand Sport, a racing Corvette that shared almost nothing with the production car except its name. The Grand Sport started with a completely redesigned chassis. Duntov threw out the production Corvette's steel frame and built a lightweight tubular space frame. Where the production car used heavy cast iron components, the Grand Sport used aluminum everywhere possible. The body panels were thin fiberglass, half the thickness of production Corvettes. Every component was chosen for one reason: reduce weight. The production 1963 Corvette weighed around 3,000 pounds. The Grand Sport came in at 1,900 pounds. That's a 1,100-pound difference. The weight of a small motorcycle. The weight savings extended to every component. Duntov's team used magnesium for the wheels, saving precious pounds in unsprung weight. The side exhaust pipes were mandatory, not for style, but because routing exhaust under the car added weight and complexity. Even the paint was applied thinner than production Corvettes. Every ounce mattered when you were building a car to compete against purpose-built European race cars. But weight savings meant nothing without power. Duntov planned to install a racing version of Chevrolet's new 377 cubic inch small block. In racing trim, this engine was projected to make 485 horsepower. Combined with the car's light weight, the Grand Sport would have a power-to-weight ratio that could challenge anything from Europe. The engine design was advanced for 1963. It featured an aluminum block, extremely rare for American production, with 4 Weber carburetors feeding fuel through precisely tuned intake runners. The bottom end was strengthened to handle sustained high RPM operation. This wasn't an engine you'd want to drive to the grocery store, but for endurance racing at places like Le Mans or Sebring, it was exactly what Duntov needed. The first prototypes showed incredible promise. During early testing at GM's proving grounds, the Grand Sport was posting lap times that matched contemporary Formula One cars. This wasn't just a fast Corvette. It was a legitimate race car that happened to wear a Corvette badge. Then General Motors killed it. In January 1963, GM announced it was withdrawing from all factory-sponsored racing programs. The decision came from the very top. The corporate board issued what became known as the no racing policy. Every division had to cease all racing activities immediately. Ford, Chrysler, and other manufacturers had agreed to the same policy after pressure from safety advocates and insurance companies. For Duntov, this was devastating. He'd invested months of development work and had lined up a full racing program. The Grand Sport was supposed to compete at Sebring, Le Mans, and other international endurance races. He had already started building 125 cars, the minimum number required for FIA homologation. The corporate order was clear: stop immediately, destroy the tooling, cancel the program. Duntov didn't stop. Instead, he did something remarkable. He convinced GM to let him complete the 5 Grand Sports already under construction. His argument was simple: these cars were too far along to scrap, and completing them would cost less than destroying everything. GM reluctantly agreed, probably assuming 5 cars couldn't do much damage to their reputation. They were wrong. Duntov completed those 5 Grand Sports and then quietly found ways to get them into the hands of private racing teams. He couldn't officially support them. That would violate GM's policy, but he could make sure the cars ended up with serious racers who had the resources to campaign them properly. The first Grand Sport went to Grady Davis and his Gulf Racing team. The second went to John Mecom's racing operation in Texas. The remaining 3 were distributed to other privateers with racing programs. Officially, these were sold as used cars. Unofficially, everyone knew what was happening. The Grand Sports immediately proved they were worth the trouble. At Nassau Speed Week in 1963, Roger Penske drove Grand Sport number 002 against the best competition from Europe and America. He qualified on the front row and finished 4th overall, beating multiple factory-backed teams. This wasn't just good for a Corvette. It was competitive with purpose-built race cars from Ferrari and Porsche. The Nassau results proved the Grand Sport concept worked. Penske's driving impressed everyone, but the car itself was the real story. Here was an American sports car, built in secret with minimal factory support, running door-to-door with the best Europe could offer. The European teams had decades of racing experience and unlimited budgets. The Grand Sport had Duntov's determination and brilliant engineering. At Sebring in 1964, the Grand Sports took on Ford's new Cobra Daytona Coupes. The Cobras had factory support, professional development teams, and Carroll Shelby's racing expertise. The Grand Sports were privateers operating on limited budgets with minimal factory assistance. The race became a battle between the 2 American sports car programs, and the Grand Sports more than held their own. Driver Jim Hall, who later became famous for his revolutionary Chaparral race cars, pushed Grand Sport number 003 to speeds over 180 miles per hour on Sebring's long straight. The car's aerodynamics weren't perfect. The front end generated lift at high speeds, but the sheer power and handling made up for it. What made these performances remarkable was the context. These cars were supposed to be dead, canceled by corporate decree, destroyed before they could embarrass GM's racing ban. Instead, they were winning races and proving that American engineering could compete globally. Every Grand Sport victory was a middle finger to the corporate policy that tried to kill them. The more the Grand Sports raced, the faster they became. Teams developed their own improvements since Chevrolet couldn't officially help. Mecom's team experimented with different body modifications to improve aerodynamics. They added small spoilers and ducktails, trying to keep the front end planted at high speeds. Engine development continued in secret. While Chevrolet couldn't officially provide racing engines, somehow these teams kept getting more powerful small blocks. By 1965, some Grand Sports were running engines making over 550 horsepower. The original 377 cubic inch displacement grew to 427 cubic inches in some cars. At Daytona in 1966, Grand Sport number 002 reached 198 miles per hour on the banking, making it one of the fastest production-based sports cars in America. The only things faster were purpose-built prototypes with millions in factory development behind them. The Grand Sport's racing career created some of motorsport's most memorable moments. At the 1966 Sebring 12 Hours, drivers Dick Goldstrand and Bob Bondurant pushed their Grand Sport into 3rd place overall. They beat factory teams from Porsche, Ferrari, and Ford, teams with unlimited budgets and full factory support. That result embarrassed the European manufacturers. Here was a car that was supposed to be canceled, built in secret, and campaigned by privateers, and it was beating the best Europe could offer. The Grand Sport proved something Duntov had believed all along. American engineering could compete with anyone if given the chance. The car's success on track demonstrated that the Corvette platform, when properly developed for racing, was world-class. Today, the 5 original Grand Sports are among the most valuable Corvettes ever built. Each one has a documented racing history and represents a unique moment in American motorsports. One sold at auction for over $3 million. The others rarely come up for sale because their owners understand what they represent. These aren't just rare Corvettes. They're proof that one determined engineer could defy corporate policy, build race cars in secret, and create legends that would compete with the best in the world. Zora Arkus-Duntov wanted to race, and when GM said no, he found a way to do it anyway. The Grand Sport only existed because someone refused to accept that racing had to stop. 5 cars, countless victories, and a legacy that proves sometimes the best way to follow the rules is to find a way around them. That's the Corvette Grand Sport, the illegal race car that became an American icon.